first look at the event overall, and I didn't count up all the days on two hands, but it's 811 days since the last day of the 2020 BDO World Championship. This, of course, being the first WDF World Championship finally here. How excited are you for the Lakeside?
Okay, so very excited, but with an air of trepidation. And it's in many ways very similar to the 2020 BDO World Championship, which was held at the O2, change of venue. And the biggest thing we were worried about at that time was tickets. So before we get stuck into tickets, because I'm sure it's not the first time we're going to be talking about this, I'm very excited for it because Lakeside will always have a very special place in my heart. It was what I grew up watching. I didn't have Sky, so couldn't watch the PDC stuff. The first World Championship I ever watched was on telly at the Lakeside with Les Wallace taking the glorious title that year. So therefore it will always be the sort of the home of darts from a personal perspective, and hundreds if not thousands of people have similar tales to that. So there's that aspect. Of course, I also played in the qualifier to try and get to the Lakeside, if you remember.
Yes,
back in December, which was ticked off the bucket list to say I played at the Lakeside. So yeah, always very, very special, and it'll be great to be there, representing the podcast on Sunday. However, and this has been much talked about, the worry, of course, is tickets, and what we hear is a lack of sales. The last thing we want is for this to be, plagued by a lack of ticket sales. I think it's fair to say that you and I want every darts event to succeed, just based on the sheer amount of effort that has to go into these things in order to make them happen. It would be a real shame if that was going to be the main talking point. How about yourself?
I'll probably come on to the ticket side of things in the next question, but I'm going to look at it firstly as a darts event. And I put a tweet out last week saying that I couldn't believe that it was only 10 days away. It feels like this event has snuck up on us a little bit. There's been a long time waiting for this event to come round. I'm really looking forward to it. And some of the reasons I'll probably go into a bit more detail later on in the show, but starting with the men's draw, and it is wide open. I don't think there's a clear favourite to lift the title a week on Sunday, and maybe once we get to the last 16 and we've got rid of 32 of the players, we'll have a better idea on who we could see going to lift the title. But I think right now you could list off 8, 10, 12, maybe even more names in that list of players that you could say they could go all the way. They could become the first WDF Men's World Champion next week. And in the PDC era that we're in at the moment, it is a lot more wide open than it was before. We don't have a dominant figure like a Phil Taylor or a Michael Van Gogh, and that's what's made it so exciting to watch over the last few years. But when you get an event like this, that's just taking it to another level, because you look at the players in this field and there isn't a clear favourite at all. So coming into an event like that is something that you're excited to watch. And on the other side of things, you've got the ladies. They've got their World Championship back, and that's massive for them. And of course, props to the PDC. They've put on the Women's Series. They're putting on the Women's World Match Play this summer. But if you're a female darts player and you've grown up seeing Trina Gulliver win 10 world titles, you've seen the likes of Lisa, Anastasia, Makuru win multiple world championships. That is the pinnacle in any sport, is to become a world champion. So to have that world championship back is brilliant. And okay, you've got two of the big names, the big two, if you like, in the ladies game missing from the field, Lisa Ashton and Fallon Sherrick, but there's still a lot of quality in there, a lot of names that we know, and some names a bit like the men's draw that we don't know too much about. So getting to see these players that we've not seen before, some of them that we don't really know much about, for the first time on one of those stages like the Lakeside, which is one of the most well-known stages in darts, is going to make for some interesting viewing. So for me personally, on a darts side of things, seeing these two events, looking at the draws that we've got for it, it's set up for 9 days of darts that, if you're a darts fan, you're going to be excited to watch.
Yeah, I think that's really nailed it, really, isn't it? From a darts perspective, it should be really very, very exciting. I worry whether it's too niche. I mean, it's hard to put the finger on the pulse of these things. I mean, obviously, whenever there's a build up for the big PDC events, you sort of get a feeling of on social media and on the groups that people are very excited or looking forward to going. Haven't seen a great deal of that so far in relation to Lakeside. So I just pray to God that the ticket sales are more than what I fear. Now, a lot has happened, of course, off the Oki since the O2 in 811 days. Just the small matter of the BDO's demise. Still alive, though, Alex. It's still alive.
Yeah,
Torremolinos Open is still
alive
going strong, which is great. We hope that event's a success, of course. But let's put that to one side, shall we? Then the pandemic. Heard about that?
Yeah, I've heard about that.
Yeah, that's fair enough, and that's really has plagued the WDF, who have since taken over. And there's a lot has been put out of their hands as a result of the pandemic. How important do you think this tournament is in the grand scheme of things for them?
It's hugely important, and I don't think you can underplay just how crucial these next 2 weeks are going to be for the WDF. And just to get to this point, they do deserve a pat on the back, because you look at the timeline of this WDF World Championship and it dates back to January 13th, 2020. I think it was during the BDO World Championship, the last one, or maybe just after they put a statement out, the WDF, their 2020 vision. They were going to bring us brand new WDF major tournaments. And of course, as you mentioned, the pandemic came not long after that, maybe 5 or 6 weeks after that. The world shut down, and for a long time we've been waiting for darts to come back at an amateur semi-professional level. That the PDC have been able to get their events on, but the WDF and a lot of organisations similar to them, they've had to bide their time. They've had to wait for restrictions to ease and to get events going again. And June 2021, that's when they announced the Lakeside. It was going to be their venue for their World Championship in January this year. And of course, December 15th, 2021, the event got postponed a little less than 3 weeks before it was due to start on New Year's Day, start of this year, due to the ongoing restrictions. And finally, we've got to that point. We're going to have the first darts thrown this weekend. This Saturday will be the start of the tournament. But as you touched on a moment ago, the ticket sales, what we're hearing is not good news, is it? I think I've seen reports around 20%, 25% of overall tickets sold so far. And that, if that is the figure, if that's what it ends up being, then that's a huge disappointment for the WDF. And hopefully they'll be able to push the ticket sales. They'll be able to get that up to a more respectable figure. And, it's difficult, isn't it? As you say, is there a gap in the market for a tournament like this in this day and age? We don't know. The ticket sales at the moment, if those figures are correct, would suggest not. But I personally do feel that this tournament does deserve its place on the calendar. And for the ladies, for the men, for all the players that are going to be playing at the Lakeside or wherever this championship ends up being in the years to come, there should be a place for it on the calendar. And I think the WDF, they are going to learn some lessons over these next 2 weeks. They're going to take a lot from what goes on the Oki, off the Oki over these next 2 weeks and learn from it, you hope. And I think one of the big things that they need to really look to is the promotion side of things, the media side of things, how they put their product out there. And maybe that does involve putting a bit more investment, a bit more money in that side of things. I think that's the way forward for me. They need to look at the promotion side, how they promote these events. And if you're not getting your product out there, you're not going to sell many tickets. And this is a big advert for the WDF, that they are going to have that TV coverage. Some of it, as we know, is going to be on free to air, the afternoon sessions, the finals. All of the events are going to be on Eurosport. And there's a lot of organisations out there that snap your hand off for 9 days of consecutive coverage on TV. So they're doing a lot of things right. Of course, some people won't agree with all the decisions they've made over the last few years, but they have got to this point. And I guess we've got to see how this event goes. We'll have a look back at it at the end of the tournament to see how it has played out. But going into it, I think you've got to say it's a big fortnight coming up for the WDF.
Yeah, just to pick up on a few of those points, Alex, obviously we are talking about ticket sales. That is obviously nothing to do with the WDF to some extent, because it is primarily down to, the venue and they set the prices, of course. So a lot of the criticism has been levied at the prices. Well, that isn't actually, the organisation doesn't say that. It's the venue that sets that. So there's that element. I've heard lots of variations on the argument of, why don't you drop the ticket price to X amount, fill it, and make the money back at the bar, because we all know the crowd will drink and they will eat. Maybe there's some truth in that tactic. Obviously, it's far too late now. But again, what we would say about the WDF is that they're a very professional outfit, and they've got some very sensible people, in my view, at the helm, and they will learn. Whereas the difference, of course, with perhaps the previous establishment with the BDO was that there would be mistakes made, and you think, I don't think they're going to learn, actually, and then things just snowball and got progressively worse until they now no longer exist, with the exception of the Torremolinos events. Good news, of course, today is that they were going to be on Quest. That's free to air telly, so that's good news from that perspective. Yes, it's hard to find, but at least it's on free to air telly, so that makes a massive difference. They don't have I feel sorry for the WDF in many ways, because they don't have a great deal of momentum coming into this. And Martin Adams gave that interview during the World Seniors, which is a very popular event, a different kind of event, because obviously it's the novelty value and you had established names, and it was at the Circus Tavern and all that sort of stuff. So you can't really compare like for like. Martin Adams very honestly said, it feels like the WDF are doing the same old stuff. Well, the problem, of course, the WDF had is that the two innovative ideas they did have were the World Open and the World Masters in the Netherlands. And I think those would have been amazing events, and they were certainly being billed as such. And, Netherlands, I'm surprised they don't. We don't do more events over there. Yes, there are restrictions on sponsors over there, but it's a real fantastic market that potentially could be tapped into. So I do, and of course the pandemic put paid to all of that. So hopefully those events do come back and they do get a chance to do something new and innovative, which I know they really strive to do, and hopefully this is one step along the way to doing that.